Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Hey, welcome everybody to the show. I can't believe it's October already. It's really kind of weird. But 2020 is gradually coming to a close. And I have no idea what is going to happen next month. I'm not clairvoyant. I don't know what the future is. But at least coming to a close on 2020 is the least that we can expect at this moment. But yeah, it's October. It is so weird. It feels like I stopped in March and that this entire thing has been kind of like a weird dream that I'm in. I'm sure like all of us can kind of feel a little bit of that just with everything going on. But you know what? I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm not even going to get into what's going on in the world, because we're here to talk about our craft. We're here to talk about filmmaking and screenwriting, and the thing that comes with all of that, any artistic endeavor, anything creative, anything that involves trying to pour your soul out into the world to be accepted, is that eventually, or not eventually, like most likely it's going to be rejected. Anything that you do is going to have some form of rejection. It comes with this whole striving to make something with taking something that's in our head and trying to put it out onto the page, or to try to put it into a scene that we're filming, or to just express ourselves. It's a extremely hard thing to do because our minds just have so many different connections that are going on at once that when trying to form it into something that is coherent and digestible, it can be an extremely tough job just to get those images out onto the page or onto whatever it is we're trying to do. If you're painting a picture or just anything, it's extremely hard to do, which I'm sure all of us can attest to. And with that, with this rejection, it's important to actually accept the no. Accept the fact that not everybody is going to think that you're a genius. Accept the fact that maybe the thing that you really, really love is not translating to strangers who may read it or who may see it. It's never going to be 100% acceptance of whatever you make. And I don't think I've touched upon it nearly as much as I probably will in this episode. It's part of the game. It's part of what this whole creating stuff is all about. And it's a very frustrating part of the process as well. Especially if you believe in something that is going to be successful, or that is going to be a good story, or that will change the way in which like certain stories are told. Like any number of positive feelings you have about whatever it is you're creating. It's always going to take convincing somebody else that you're on the right track, or that what it is that you've made can actually accomplish what you claim it's going to accomplish. And it's an extremely hard thing to do as a filmmaker, because having a script is one thing, and it could read really well and it could play well on the page, but it's a completely different kind of story once you put it up on screen. Now, I have made a couple films, and I've seen how when I'm writing the script, a scene is playing out a certain way in my head, and the characters are speaking in the way that I think they're supposed to be speaking, and the movements and the images are all being put together in my head as I'm writing it. But then when I get on set and I have cast actors and the location that I thought was going to be the location for the scene, maybe it suddenly changes, or it's not the layout that I had in mind. And so all of that ends up changing and it becomes something completely different. And the actors will say lines in different ways that I never expected they would. And a lot of times it's a surprise where I'm like, wow, actually, the way you're saying it is better than the way I heard it in my head. And that's great. That's keeping me on my toes. That's giving me a different interpretation of something that I thought was going to be said in a certain way. So all that stuff is just, it's awesome. It's part of the ongoing creative process. It turns what was written into something completely different. All of those things are great. But you can't get to that point unless somebody accepts what's written on the page first. And having all this lockdown happen and this pandemic shut everything down. There was no production happening, or I should say, if there was production happening, it was very minimal, and we were still figuring out what the protocols were going to be on set, to keep everybody safe, because lives are way more important than any kind of like film we're trying to make. You know, it's just, that's the reality. We are making things that are there to entertain people, sometimes to be educational, but for the most part, it's like, when it comes down to it, you know, people need food, shelter, healthcare. There are way more things that are on the list besides, you know, watching some movie that, you know, we're trying to make, or, you know, reading some book, you know. It's sad to say, but that's just the reality, and, you know, it is what it is. But at least, you know, the movies and the books and the artworks that we're making can, you know, still give comfort, can still be something that adds to life and doesn't take away life. So it's like there is value in that. So I don't want to completely diminish, you know, the thing that I've you know, I want to be a part of, the thing that since I was a child I wanted to be a part of films. I didn't know why. I just was like, whatever I'm seeing on the screen, I want to be a part of that. That looks like a lot of fun. I want to be there. I want to figure out how to get there and to be on set, or, you know, to be one of the actors. I want to do that. That looks like a lot of fun. So, okay. All that aside, because there wasn't a lot going on, a lot of us had to figure out how to continue to be creative and productive. And some of us had to pivot to do other things until it was safe to go back and be on set. And so some people started writing, some people started a podcast, some people, you know, went off and said, you know, I'm going to step away from doing film, and I'm going to, you know, learn how to make bread and, you know, finally take care of pulling those weeds in the front yard. Which was something I started to do as well. I was like, yeah, we got weeds everywhere. I just need to, you know, I need to go outside and just, you know, start pulling weeds. So I started doing that. Anyway, so another thing I started to do as well was submitting scripts to film festivals. Because at least if there wasn't productions going on, there was still film festivals that were trying to move online and still have some kind of event happening. And I had spent most of 2019 with this writing sprint that was amazing. I generated so much work last year. And I had this short script that I was really proud of. It was this idea that I had, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it, but I had like these like vague glimpses of what it could be. And one day when I'd finished one script, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to tackle this idea. And so I started writing it, and I don't know how long it took me to finish, but I knew what to do with it. Like, just something inside of me said, this is how you need to approach this story. And so I did, and I wrote it, and I was really proud of it. And I gave it to some colleagues, and they were like, this is really good. Here are some notes. You might want to think about changing this or that. And I did that. And so I was like, this is going to be a film that I would love to get into production, because I think that it'll be something that the audience would want to see. And but since productions weren't happening, I was like, well, the next best thing is to put it into some film festivals and screenplay competitions, and just to see what the response is going to be, because so far it's been a positive response. And if I'm getting a positive response, then maybe when I give it to strangers, that they will think the same thing. And actually, it's been a mixed bag when it comes to that script. So far, it's gotten to be a semifinalist in one screenplay competition. But on the flip side, it's gotten rejected by 2 film festivals. So I'm like, well, I've never had a script I've never had a script get that far. And, to be fair, I actually never really considered putting a script into a film festival. Because of the fact that when I write a script, I don't intend for it to just sit on the shelf. I don't intend for it to just go through like screenplay competitions. Like, I write a script because I want to see it. I want to have it go into production. I want it to be a film that I can share with people, and that, sure, putting it into a film festival after it's already a film, that's a better scenario for me than just having a script, because having a script doesn't mean much, because the interpretation of that script is endless. And giving having a good script doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a good film either, too. So I've never bought into the idea of submitting to screenplay competitions, because because so much of the process is not about the screenplay itself, but of getting it to become a film. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. That's not what I'm not trying to win awards for a screenplay. I'm trying to win awards for a film, for a finished film. So having both sides of it being accepted and being rejected made me think about the fact that I actually haven't gone through the process of being completely rejected to the point where I guess I've earned the success, if that makes any sense. I often think about Stephen King, and I think I focus a lot on getting advice, or at least following the careers of writers, because writing is such a lonely job to have. It's such a it's just there's something, I guess, in my mind, a bit I guess romantic. This romantic notion of sitting behind a desk with a fire in the corner, and just typing away at this manuscript that you're going to send off to a publisher and it'll become a book, just like I think I had those ideas in my head before I ever had an idea about being an actor or before I had an idea about being a director. I think I understood what a writer was before I understood any of those other jobs. And so I kind of always come back to that. And I always have fallen in love with stories and novels that have kind of hooked me in. Even though, like, as a child, I hated reading. But if there was a book that I started reading and it hooked me in, I was in. I was hooked. And I would go on that journey with the author. But I've kind of leaned more into the writing in the past like 3 years or so, and I read Stephen King's a memoir on his writing process, and he told a story about when he was starting out. He would send stories off to publications and newspapers or whatever, and he would get letters back that would reject his story. And so he would save those letters, and in fact, he had this nail that I guess he had, in his wall. Maybe it held up a picture at one point, and he would just take those letters and he would just like pin them up on the wall. And he apparently was rejected like over 100 times or something like that, like an absurd amount of times before he even got a letter that accepted one of his stories. And on the one hand, putting yourself in his shoes at that time, before he even gets any success, before anybody knows who Stephen King is, like, you can just imagine how depressed he must have been, how every letter that came in the mail, like, he probably got so numb to the fact that he was just being rejected. He'd be like, yep, here's another letter. Like, I wonder how many of those letters he waited to open, or maybe he just like put them on the nail because he was like, yep, this is most likely a rejection letter. It is what it is. I'm just going to, try again. But it's also inspirational because you see like how far he's come. And, Stephen King's just one example out of many. I mean, like, you think of anybody who's successful, they have most likely been rejected over and over and over and over again. And they keep going. They have persistence. They know that, like, it just takes somebody who gets what they're trying to say, who can look at their work and say, you know what? Maybe this is different. Maybe this is weird. Maybe this is not what we usually like get. Maybe this is not what an audience wants, but I like it. So yeah, let's let them through. Let's publish their stuff. Let's greenlight their movie. Let's just give it a chance, because giving something that's different a chance and it being successful changes the game. Think of movies like Paranormal Activity, or what's another one? There have been plenty of movies where maybe they weren't expected to be successes, but then they ended up being phenomenons. And then every movie after that was just a copycat of that one thing. But it wouldn't have been that way if everybody just flat out said, nope, we are never going to do this story. We are never going to give this movie a chance. We're never going to give this book a chance. There's just no way. And I take comfort in that. I take comfort in the fact that maybe people don't get what I'm trying to do right now, but eventually somebody will. Eventually somebody will give me a chance. And even though it's very depressing to get a lot of rejection and to get those no's right now, getting a yes, and especially if that yes is from the audience after you've made the thing and you've put it out into the world, and they're like, this is exactly what we wanted. Thank you. We will reward you. We will, like, buy that movie. We'll buy that book. We'll buy whatever, because that is something that we want and that we're excited about. So I want to encourage everybody, like, lean into those no's. Like, lean into the rejection. Understand that it's going to be there. Don't get discouraged, and just keep going. Just, like, let it, like, water off a duck's back. Say, you know what? That's fine if so-and-so didn't like it. That's fine if, this film festival didn't like it, or, that's fine. Because not everybody is going to like what you make. And not everybody is going to accept what you make. But you just got to keep going. You got to go with, like, what you think is good. And then, keep going through that process of refining yourself, of finding new interests and incorporating new things into your work. Because eventually you will reach a point where you will become undeniable because you keep working. It's a numbers game. You just keep going. Eventually people look around, they're like, wow, this person keeps going. Like, they've been rejected so many times, yet they keep going. Why do they keep going? Oh, because they believe in what they're doing. They believe that what they're doing is what the world needs right now. Or, maybe not even right now, but just in general. Like, eventually somebody will find what it is they're creating and appreciate it. So, yes, keep going. I'm a cheerleader for you guys. I know that it's hard to keep going, to like want to create work. Sometimes, you just kind of look around at the world and you think, oh my gosh, like, who needs this? And people need your work. So keep going. Just keep going. And, let me know how I can help. Let me know if there's anything that, I can read or that I can see, because I want to support as many people as possible. Because this is a community too. And there's so many of us, and I understand it's overwhelming when everybody has a project. But, we just got to keep going. So until the next one, guys, I hope you guys are being safe. I hope, you're, washing your hands and wearing the masks and everything. And, 2020 is almost done. And I hope that we can all come to the other side of this as better people. And, just look at each other as human beings and be like, hey, we're not going to agree on everything. We're going to reject each other, and that's fine. But all in all, we're all human beings, and we all need each other to survive, in the long run. So, anyway, till the next one. Also, if you haven't done this already, I have a Twitter account for the podcast. It's at title_Tim. And I also have a Facebook page as well, and you can subscribe to that, and I will put episodes up there and any updates. So yeah, come on by, say hi, and yeah, till the next one.